Welcome to the Man Up, Man Down podcast, presented by Volker Beluda and David Pawsey. We discuss the pressures and challenges faced by men approaching middle age that we're often too embarrassed to speak about with our friends. You can find us online at www.manupdown.com. Enjoy the show and don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review.
So welcome to another episode of Man Up, Man Down. Today we're lucky enough to welcome Mauro Stara, founder of Six Pack CEO, and he's a peak performance expert and trusted advisor to successful CEOs and business owners. He's known as the last resort for those exhausted from mainstream approaches and specialises in resolving challenges where others have failed. He does this by prioritising advanced blood work testing and personalised coaching, and tackles the root cause of stagnation, which he believes is hormones. So with his guidance, clients achieve lifelong sustainable transformations, reclaiming vitality and confidence amidst demanding schedules. So quite a bit there, Mauro. I mean, it's interesting. That's sort of something that personally I could never, run a big organization because I get overwhelmed with just a small amount of tasks. So I always thought, it is a very demanding job. And, who is it that looks after CEOs and keeps them healthy? So I'm guessing that's you. So welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
So, how did you get into coaching CEOs? And yeah, if you could tell us sort of about your journey to that.
I was in banking in Switzerland for 5.5 years. And as I was in corporate, I was exposed to senior executives, not really CEO, but senior executives, managers, negotiation partners, clients. And usually these were men 40, 50 plus, out of shape, very poor lifestyle habits. And as they say, your environment will influence you to a certain degree. I was chasing wealth and in my career and, the business that I was working on the side, businesses. And as I was chasing wealth, I gave up my health in the process. And I started gaining fat, love handles grew, the belly became softer, and I started have health issues where my heart muscle got inflamed. I burned myself out, and that's where I kind of drew the line and say, hey, enough is enough. I'm not going to continue like that. And as I fixed it and turned it around, I saw the opportunity to lead men just like me that I saw day in and day out for 5.5 years, every single week, right? And that's how those two things got merged together, where it's not just the meathead at the gym who, wants to train people online, but, I saw, hey, there's more to it, and I understand the lifestyle very well and the behavior, the psychology from, let's say, white-collar men.
So you're originally from Switzerland, then?
So it's very complicated. I was
Okay, good.
born in Switzerland, but originally I'm from Italy. So my blood is Italian, but I was born there. Yeah. So
Right.
I feel Italian, but I've definitely adapted a lot of very good things from the culture and, let's say, the discipline and the structure that Switzerland has, which is very rare to find these days, right?
Yeah. I mean, Switzerland is, it's a corner of all those states anyway, right? So you're in good company there. And you now live in Portugal, you're saying, but you're working
Yes.
with CEOs globally, or?
Sorry?
So how's your business structure? So you're working with CEOs globally, or?
Yeah. So most of our clients are in the US.
Okay.
And we have a few clients then outside the US. So 90% are in the US and about 10%, 5-10% are in Europe or Australia and Canada.
Is that so? So if we go back, so you had all this experience in terms of your heart problems and burnout. So that's how you got into it. And then how do you then, if I say, jump to offer that to CEOs?
Yeah, so I was already working out prior to that and had my personal transformation, but it was more very surface level what I knew and what I was offering. And once I hit the wall and burned myself out there, I realized, hey, my schedule is getting tighter and I have a lot of demand on my schedule. So what I've been doing prior is not working anymore with these new cards that I've been given, right? So
Yeah.
I had to restructure it and focus more on smart work and efficiency and effectiveness rather than just hard work and grinding it out when it comes to fitness. Plus, I realized that, hey, training nutrition is very important, but I underestimated recovery and sleep specifically. So I was cutting my sleep back to work more hours for my online business that I was building. And, the banking also took quite a few hours during the day. And I emphasized more on recovery and started to dive into blood work and hormone optimization, biohacking. And that's where I blended those two things together. And then because of the constant exposure of, businessmen, white collar guys, successful men, in my banking career, I made the transition to help that specific audience because when I first started out, I was helping everyone. Like, hey, everyone is welcome. And as I dive deeper into hormones and metabolism and biohacking and recovery, I realized, hey, if I really want to go deep, I have to pick a side. I have to open a door. And I cannot become an expert in both. I mean, you could if you just do that every single hour of the day, but there's more to it when you run a business. So I had to pick a side. Are you going to work with women or men? Because hormones are different, psychology is different, right? Women like to be more empowered, men like to be more challenged when it comes to coaching. So there's all these different facets, and that's where I kind of gave up, working with females, and I specialized in men. And then, hey, what type of men? And again, we have guys who are like in their 30s, but usually most of our audience are 35, 40 plus. That's like the bullseye, so to say. And I found like when I just focused on that in the center, then I was able to double down my expertise there. We do have a female program, but it's not me running it. And that's why I decided to niche down and double down. So yeah, of course, there's a marketing component of it, but there's also the component of, hey, if I just work with everyone, it's impossible to study long enough and deep enough hormones, psychology, and all that comes with it for every single archetype. So I just picked one and went all in on that person. And it's also who I enjoy working with the most because men in their 20s, or let's say before 35, usually, not all, again, there are always outliers, but most, there's no urgency. All they think about is career, career, career. And once I make enough money, I'll take care of my health. Where I found like guys, specifically also 50 plus, are some of our best clients because there's urgency. They know, hey, I'm getting 50. I need to do this now. And they take it way more seriously, and their focus, their energy towards it, and their commitment is actually bigger than guys 20, 30 years younger than them. Even though the guys younger than them would have more success because hormones, metabolism, habits are not as ingrained as when you're 50, right? When the roots are really deep, it takes time to change those. But that's basically a little bit more detailed explanation there on my thought process and journey throughout this. So before it was just, again, like a fisher net, and now it's a sniper.
Spearfishing. You made there was a phrase that you used that sort of struck a nerve that you sort of said playing with the new card or the new hand I've been dealt or the new cards have been dealt. And I think that's sort of such a common theme that even if, I mean, you've sort of mentioned that, you've got guys in their 50s who have come that are a bit out of shape, but I mean, I've noticed that, what works in your 20s and 30s and, and that, predominantly exercise, but also your lifestyle is, you can sort of burn the candles at both ends a bit more. And you can have a late night, get up early and go to the gym, and it doesn't affect you as much. And the older you get, I think, you realize that the exercise routine or regime that has worked for the last couple of decades, suddenly your body has changed physiologically. And it's like, right, I've got to take a new approach. So, I mean, I mean, how different is it coaching? I mean, obviously you said that you do specialize in that age group or, above sort of 35. I mean, and you've sort of talked about the psychology of a 50-year-old, but, I mean, what are the sort of physiological differences? And, can you talk about the sort of how the blood work and the hormones all come into play?
Yeah, so there's a graphic that I can send it to you guys as well. I don't know if you want to put it up in the podcast or show up there, but there's like a really good graphic that shows that. It's actually when I am invited to speak somewhere, I like to use that one there. Basically, what you see is all the hormones that favor, let's say, muscle growth, fat loss, energy. When you're in your 20s, they're here. And then in your 50s, there's like they tank. There's a deep dive for both men and women. So for men, right, you have obviously testosterone, which is here, and then it goes down. Some of it is age related. A lot of it is lifestyle related, right? It's just the amplification or the accumulation of poor lifestyle that will have an impact on that. And then all the hormones that work, I don't want to label them as bad hormones or not favorable ones, because every hormone has its place. But when you have too much or too little, that's when an issue arises or symptoms arise. And so you have, like, let's say the two bad guys in the movie, right, that play the main characters there. You have cortisol and insulin. So as you get older, cortisol rises up and insulin rises up. And if your cortisol is higher, your testosterone is lower, well, your recovery is going to be slower than when testosterone was sky high and cortisol was low. So if you worked out 5-6 days a week, you're an ex-athlete in your 20s, that worked really well. Testosterone is high, cortisol is low. You can hit the gym daily, train 2 hours a day, and recover really well. Now, you hit 40, it's January, maybe New Year resolution. All right, here's how I looked at my 20s. Here's the exact same routine I did. And you could follow the exact same routine, but it's not going to be the same outcome as it was 20 years ago, because externally, yeah, like the plan looks exactly the same, but it truly, like, your biochemistry has changed. So that is one part. The other part is if you're insulin resistant, then you could have a hard time losing body fat. It will impact the recovery, inflammation, cardiovascular health, overall energy, their energy availability. Energy crashes during the day. So think about the post-lunch crashes. That's going to be a big thing there. So basically, that is a big part that changed on the hormone side of things. And then you have on the metabolism side of things, if you haven't been working out consistently towards your 20s and 30s, and now let's say you hit 40, then over the course of the last 2 decades or the last 20 years, there's been a big gap in your muscle resume. And because of that gap, what's going to happen is that you have less muscle mass, because there's just something called sarcopenia, which is age-related muscle loss, where you lose 1 to 2% of muscle every year. And so because of that, unless you train and do resistance training, get good sleep, enough protein, you can reverse that. But most people don't. And so less muscle means also less metabolic active tissue, or let's just say slower metabolism. So now you have hormones that are out of balance and a slower metabolism. So getting back in shape suddenly becomes an uphill battle. It's possible, right? The art and science is there, and I believe we do that very well. But you can't just do the same thing you've been always doing and expect to get the same results. Because if that would work, we could go and walk outside in the UK, in the US, on the beach, and everyone would be ripped and look amazing. But the reality is quite the opposite, right?
So what do we need to do? So I'm in my early 40s. I didn't work out a lot when I was in my 20s, other than a lot of drinking and a lot of smoking. So I wasn't very active. So when I gave up smoking, tender age of just under 30, I started running, and I'm hitting the gym now. You know, mid late 40s, turning 48 this year. You know, closer to 50. What's the best way forward? I mean, I think definitely you're 100% right. My metabolism isn't what it used to be. I eat a lot, and it all shows. You know, luckily, obviously, that bit of my of my body. So what's the trick?
So what you're doing with resistance training is already good,
Yeah.
right? Like we could, but I don't know how deep you want to take this on all the training aspects, but that is one pillar, resistance training,
Yeah.
2 to 3 times a week minimum.
Okay.
If you can recover from 4 sessions, that's good. So 2 to 3 times, maybe a fourth one if needed, but like I'm a big fan of 3 sessions a week.
Okay.
That's like the sweet spot between good progress, but still good recovery and lifestyle. And obviously your diet is going to play a big role. So getting enough protein is going to be absolutely key, but also fats, carbohydrates. So hitting all the macros is going to be key. Food quality, right? What are you getting there? Is it wild caught salmon? Is it grass fed, grass finished beef? Is it pasture raised eggs, good quality milk, dairy if you do that, and then antioxidants such as blueberries, veggies, and so on. So how's the diet quality there? That's going to help you out with overall energy, recovery, make
Yeah.
sure you feel full and not hungry. And the Ultimate Foundation, and it's what we start off every client, is blood work. So when you get in blood work, you know exactly what is going on under the hub and why things are not working or why they're working. And you will see, hey, here's what my kidney looks like, my liver, my thyroid, which regulates your metabolism and energy. So that's going to play a big role there
Yeah.
as well. Testosterone, free testosterone, and there's more. But like when you get in a proper lab, and actually there's a really good clinic in the UK. Let me see here. They they have a very good blood panel for a very reasonable price. It's called Randox Health. So I'm not
Right.
affiliated at all with them. RANDOX, and they have very, very good labs. There's one every man, every woman. That one has, I think, 150 biomarkers, which for that price, it's like 371 pounds, 150 biomarkers, very, very, very good. And I think you even get 2 tests for that investment. So that one there is good for the UK audience. And for the US, there's obviously tons of providers that get in labs. But that test here, since this is, you guys have an audience in the UK, that is a phenomenal test. And then find someone that can read those and create a plan based on that. But you would see exactly what's going on in your body, and if there are deficiencies and how you can fix them with supplements, with diet, or If you're extremely deficient or at high risk, then possibly medication, pharmaceuticals, if that's necessary there, right? So these are like the three pillars. Diet always comes first, then lifestyle. Supplements would come second. And then if those two together, then move the needle and you're in the red zone, danger zone, or you just don't feel great, then a pharmaceutical will come into play if you've done the homework lifestyle wise. But I feel like sometimes people jump way too quick. Maybe a little bit more in America than in Europe, but people jump way too quick to medicine. You see guys, you're like, my testosterone is low, I'm going to get on TRT. And it's like, well, you're out of shape. You have, 50 pounds or 20 plus kilograms to lose. You sleep 5 hours a night. Your diet is horrible and you're stressed all the time. So, of course, your body doesn't prioritize reproduction. Why would it? Right? You're almost dying. Like, why would your body prioritize reproductive hormones? But if you're doing all this stuff, you're lean, your sleep is great, diet is good, you're training, right? Stress is managed, and your testosterone is still low, and you've taken some supplements, then it would make sense to, speak with a TRT clinic and see if that will be the case or not. But that is like the last thing, and not like, okay, let me take that. And same goes with other medication, right? Weight loss medication, thyroid medication, everything. It's like, well, of course, these things are out of alignment if your input, diet, food, environment, right, is garbage. Like, it's normal. Like, I would be shocked if it will be, right? So that's but to answer your question, that's basically the start to getting blood work and the classic lifestyle pillars. Even if you don't get them perfect, resistance training, diet, sleep, walking, drinking, like, you can get very far. Now, if you want elite level results, of course, it takes much more nuances and details, but just to reverse the decline, those things, you can't be wrong.
Essentially what you're saying, totally understand. My biggest problem is, besides I could probably do more resistance training. So I do 2 resistance training, I do 2 HIIT exercises, so spinning, and 2 cardio sessions usually a week. So I tried calisthenics, but then I did my shoulder, and as I age, my shoulder isn't as good as it used to be. But one thing you mentioned is diet, right? So I'm a bit snacker, right? I love snacking, right? Especially, we're sitting at our desk, sedentary all day long, right? How do we stop snacking? How do I get a plan? So I've been Googling that, as you can imagine. Like, how do I get a food plan and know exactly what I have to eat? Is that literally tailor-made on, if I say the blood works, or what is it based on? Or do I just eat leaner, or what's the trick?
So, yeah, a couple of things. When you get a blood work, you're not going to get a diet plan. These are just raw numbers.
Yeah.
Now, you need someone that can read those, because when you look at the blood work and the raw numbers, it doesn't say much. And the ranges that people look at it, the commercial ranges, they're not great. That's just like the minimal effective dose that you don't get sick or have a disease, but it's not where you would feel at your best. So that is part one. But yeah, you get blood work that you have the info, what approach works best for you. You could do a try and error and get there as well, but that's like the shortcut, the fastest way to get there and the most effective way. But as far as diet goes and snacking, so pay attention to the language you use. You said, I am a snacker, right?
Yeah, I am.
If you say I am, that's an identity statement.
Right.
And if you identify as someone that snacks, it's really hard to quit, because consciously you want to quit snacking, but subconsciously, your identity is your subconscious mind.
Yep.
You see yourself as a snack. It's like, I'm a smoker. Well, good luck giving up smoking. But if you say, hey, sometimes a snack, you already detached the behavior from the identity. So obviously there's psychology involved. But the other one is, most people snack because they're on a blood sugar roller coaster. So, you have, all these experts and people saying like, hey, there are healthy foods that you should eat, such as oatmeal and granola and maybe like whole grain toast for breakfast. And the issue is when you have carbs, especially like early in the day, your sugar goes up and then your pancreas release insulin to lower the sugar. And now the sugar goes down. When the sugar goes down, you feel the urge to snack. You snack, sugar is up. Then it drops, you snack again. So you're that roller coaster all day long, and it puts you in a spot where you're going to overeat. So a much more effective approach is starting off the day by backcycling your carbs, so saving them for later in the day, and having mainly protein and fats and protein and veggies throughout the day. So for example, let's say breakfast, you have a really nice egg omelet with maybe some avocado and some tomatoes or some veggies. And
Yeah.
then for lunch, you're going to have a nice steak, let's say filet or chicken or wild caught salmon, lamb, whatever you want.
Yeah.
And a salad with it, or some veggies, grilled, boiled, whatever you want. And maybe a little bit of cheese. And then for dinner, you can have again meat or fish as a protein base, but then a little bit of carbohydrates there. So fruits, potatoes, rice, quinoa, and so on.
Yeah.
What that does is it keeps your sugar very stable throughout the day. So your energy levels are sky high, which means you're going to make more money because you produce more when your energy is good. You don't have like mood swings and crash. Number two, what's that going to help you with is you're going to have no cravings and you're not going to feel hungry. And when you're not hungry and you have no cravings, you're going to eat less naturally, not through willpower and force.
Right.
So that's number one. And number two, if you want to have a snack, so to say, let's say a piece of chocolate, an almond,
Yeah.
like have it at the end of your meal.
Okay.
Don't have it in between. So have it at the end of lunch or at the end of dinner, because the order in which you eat food impacts how your sugar spikes. And again, we know that if your sugar spikes, then more insulin is released, and now you're in that roller coaster where you're always hungry, always snacking, and you're just going to put on weight and more weight and more weight. So have it at the end of the meal and don't have anything in between. You need to give your body a break and just fast in between those meals. And that's going to be a huge game changer.
Okay. I definitely will try that out because I find it very difficult because, I easily go through a packet of Revels or, Munchies or whatever, right? Just, why just have one, right? If you can have the whole pack.
Hello folks, it's Volker here. I hope you enjoy this week's episode. As you know, I coach executives, whether that is for leadership skills or sales leadership skills or working as a therapist too. There are few ways I can help you to get unstuck, improve your work-life balance or become a better version of yourself. So you will be more productive and have more time for your family. Whatever it is, you can join my client list of people from General Electric, Pepsi, DHL, Boots, and many others. Book a free exploratory call via my website, www.obnat.us. That's OBNAT.us. Now back to the show.
Anyhow, David, you had some questions there.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of tying a few things together, really. I mean, I'm a snacker as well, so I can relate to a lot of what Volker said there. And my weight has gone up and down consistently sort of throughout my life, but I've sort of found the situation that we've been describing, sort of the exercise regime that I had before, either hasn't worked in the same way or I don't have the energy for it. And I'll sort of be clear. I've been using weight loss drugs over the last few months, purely because I felt like I was eating right, I was exercising, but I still wasn't getting the results. And so I've lost 15 kilos since like the summer. And I've found that and it's helped kickstart the circle that I was able to kickstart a lot easier when I was younger. But it's, sort of the more you exercise, the better you want to eat, and, the better you sleep. And and it is also like, well, I know if I've had a rubbish night's sleep, I'm more likely to pick up the sugary snacks and, eat to keep me awake, I guess, rather than, eating what fuels my body. Um, and but there's part of me that I've resisted, sort of, yeah, I felt like it's cheating, sort of using this medication. But right, now how I feel, I'm like, this is the best that I've felt literally in years. And I mean, well, I'm sort of, there's a concern that, because I'm near my goal weight, it's like, well, will I then have a battle to fight coming off them? I mean, so is that something that you know much about? Is, what happens to the body when you stop taking weight loss drugs? Well, sorry, like Ozempic and those types of drugs.
Yeah, so two things. One is, if you didn't have a behavior change, then what a drug does is it's very, very good at suppressing appetite and lowering sugar levels. So when you stop, that's going to come back, and you're going to overeat again if you didn't change your habits. However, in your case, again, I don't know all the details of your situation, but if you said, hey, I put in the work, the ROI was not there, you've changed your habits, and now the drug has helped you, it's certainly better than staying out of shape or overweight, which is very damaging for someone's health. And again, you need to discuss that with your medical provider. But for most drugs, it's not wise to come off just like that. You want to taper it off. And if you taper it off, then you're going to see like, okay, here's how I'm responding and reacting to it. And oh, wow, like my appetite is crazy. Maybe I tapped off too much and so on. But like your doc usually creates a protocol. It's also like with SSRIs, like anxiety, depression meds. We've had clients and they're like, oh, I feel great, I'm going to stop. And then, no. And then maybe you have a panic attack or so. It's like, go to your doc. And, the longer you've been on it, usually the more it takes time to get you off from the drug, and taper it off so there's no withdrawal effects there, right? But most people, unfortunately, regain the weight once they stop the drug. But again, I don't think it's because of the mechanism as much as there was no lifestyle change. So it's like people that go on a shake diet, they just drink shakes. Like, great, you've lost weight. What happens when you eat again? Nope, you never learn the skill how to properly eat for your body. So the moment you introduce foods, are going to be the other foods that you ate before, right?
I mean, so how much of it would you say is sort of psychology in terms of behavior change? And because I guess I am on on a proper program, so it's not like I'm sort of buying them off the internet. I am getting medical supervision, so yeah, I'm not I'm sort of prescribing myself or anything. But yeah, I've sort of found that, like, especially sort of times in the evening where normally I'd sort of be, well, and I know that sort of traditionally I could be really good during the day, and then literally it would be boredom, or habit, it's like, oh, it's about my snack time. And I've sort of noticed, well, actually, I'm not doing that because I'm not hungry, but I'm also not thinking about it. So, I mean, how much do you think of an impact that will have that, I've almost sort of broken that habit of snacking in the evening?
Yeah, that's a very,
I mean,
very
sorry,
good.
I'm asking you a very personal question about me.
No, it's,
But-
and that's fine. It's very interesting what you say, where if you've been long enough on it and it suppressed the appetite, if that erases the habit, you would only know when you get off it if that has happened. I believe it depends why. Like, for example, if you're snacking because you're bored, you're at home, let's say winter in the UK, there's no sun, it's cold, it's rainy, you don't want to go out, and
Yep.
you just want to watch a bit of TV maybe. It's very tempting to grab something sugary, snacky there. Where so environment plays a role, and again, if you're bored there and you didn't change that, that will come back right away. But if it's because of your blood sugar, and now that you've lost 15 kilograms, your sugar and insulin is going to be better. So it will not be perfect, but it should be significantly better, right? So was it hormonal? Most cases it is. Or was it habit environment? Right? And that's why for me, like a lot of people look at me and they think like, oh, he's a coach, he's in shape. Well, you've always had it easy, or you don't have my problems. And it's like, no, I am actually not as disciplined or have like as much willpower as people think, but I'm very good at creating structure and routine. So I don't have any sweets at home. Like yesterday, I was like, man, I have like huge craving. I wish there was some chocolate. And I was looking in the kitchen, like, is there something? And there was nothing. And so the pain of putting my shoes on, putting a jacket on, walking down the street 10 minutes, getting something was not worth it for me to do it, right? But if it was at home, I would have grabbed it. So if you can relate to that, then you should absolutely eliminate all of that from the environment. And I don't want to hear an excuse like, yeah, but my kids. And so, if it's not good for you, it's good for them. No, like just get it out. And now when I go and get something sweet or so, usually it's when I'm in a restaurant. It's like, oh, I'm going to a restaurant, a nice dessert, and it's a different experience versus, oh, it's just at home. I'm going to, open the package and binge out of that package. No. So your environment plays a huge role, and the relationship you have with that environment. So if you can eliminate it, perfect.
And so I'll just say one more thing, and I'll let Volker get another question in.
To be honest, these questions are the same for me, right? Because, I mean, I don't take weight loss drugs, right? I don't think my BMI is high enough for me to qualify.
Well, mine isn't big enough to qualify anymore, so,
Good. Well done. You had a
sorry,
question, David.
all right. Sorry, what I was going to say was, I've forgotten what I was going to say.
Great.
Oh.
Then,
Right,
then
Volker,
let me fill in with the question, because you just mentioned the sweets, right?
Oh, I know what I was going to say.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, sorry, mindfulness. I think, sort of in combination with, sort of, well, my mindset sort of changing, but also I've become, I've been working on my mindfulness practice, and, part of that is sort of recognizing thoughts and not reacting on them. And I think that's sort of another thing that I'm like, oh, I feel a bit peckish. Then I'm like, oh, actually, am I hungry? Or is it I'm actually hankering for something that makes me feel better or taste nice, as opposed to being hungry? And I think, that's sort of another thing that I've become quite aware of, that I've almost got that mental block in place where, like a few months ago, and even when I started on them, on the, the weight loss medication, I was still sort of snacking in a similar way that I was, but, it's sort of, yeah, I feel like there's been a gradual sort of behavioural and mental change around it. But as you say, the results will be in 6 months to a year time, if I've kept the weight off without, the assistance of medication.
So I'm not 100% clear on your question to that.
Oh no, sorry, it wasn't really a question. I was just sort of having a ramble.
It's just David's rambles. But what you said earlier, sorry, David, the sugar. I'm quite interested in the sugar because we had a few people on the podcast saying, sugar is the new cocaine, right, kind of thing. Is that really true? I mean, how I thought, new year, new me, right? I'm gonna eliminate sugar from my diet. I just gonna have Greek yogurt. And I look at Greek yogurt and I'm like, shit, there's shitloads of sugar in there, right? I might as well go back to what I ate, before. I mean, which are there any good sugars, or how do I avoid sugar? Or should I avoid sugar? And, I think that's, well, for me, it's a huge question, right? Because you mentioned sweets, right? I mean, I'm trying not to buy any chocolate. If there's chocolate in the house, to your point, it's gone, right?
Yeah, I think the statement that sugars like cocaine is exaggerated. Like,
Yeah.
sure, the mechanism, but it's also like the quantity makes the poison and the
Yeah.
frequency. So if you have a birthday cake, once a year, like you're not going to get addicted to that. And I think it can do more harm than good when we label it like so extreme. And again, it depends also what type of sugar. Obviously, the mechanism is in many cases the same, but like if you have fruits, they have sugar, and yeah, they're gonna spike your sugar just as much, well, a little bit less than a Kit Kat would, right?
Yeah.
But you need that, right? It's like your body's gonna use those carbohydrates, and you need that, you want that, and you're gonna get a lot more out of it. If you have a Kit Kat, you're still gonna get energy, but yeah, it's not great long term. But a lot of times when people talk about sugar, what they often mean is like elevated levels of blood sugar, or you
Yeah.
become your glucose, A1C, insulin, you become insulin resistant. It's very high, right? So that's like a big issue there for a lot of people when, or like what a lot of people mean. And I think it's miscommunicated. But the Greek yogurt that you bought that has sugar, it depends, right? So, like, was the sugar added?
No.
Then if it was added, it certainly isn't good. But if it's like natural,
Yeah.
then it's not bad. If you drink coconut water, it's gonna have sugar, but it's not like, oh, I have to avoid that. Of course not, right? But if
Okay.
it's like a yogurt that has berries in there, so to say, usually it's like just low quality and you don't get any nutrients from those berries. You either buy the Greek yogurt, put some honey, then your own blueberries in there. But
Yeah.
it depends, right? You got to read the label and see what is on there.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because sugar is something, whenever I look at stuff now, I'm almost getting paranoid, right? I'm getting OCD in terms of, there's sugar everywhere, and how much can you avoid it? Because it's almost impossible. But then I look at my bag of Revels, and it goes like this, I don't know, 55 grams of sugar for one serving, and I'm like, how many servings are in that bag?
Yeah, that's a lot. But again, it depends also like how active
Yeah.
and how lean you are and how much muscle mass you have. So if you walk 10,000 steps a day and you train 3-4 days a week and your sugar levels and your blood work are very good, optimal, then you can tolerate more sugar or carbohydrates than someone that doesn't do that, right?
Yeah.
And also something that a lot of people underestimate is, or maybe don't even know, the more muscle mass you have, the more sugar you can eat, so to say. Because think about it like this: your muscles are like I always like to use the analogy of like this jar, right? Like, let me see here.
That's a lot.
Your muscles are like the ball of water, and the sugar is the water in there. So the bigger the bottle, the more water it can carry, right? So the bigger your muscles, the more sugar they can carry. So if this is my muscle or my muscle mass,
Yeah.
that can carry only a small amount of water, right? But the other one can carry much more. So the more muscle mass you have, the lower your sugar is going to be, because when you eat, again, your glucose sugar levels go up, and then your pancreas release insulin, and it clears the sugar from the blood and gets it into the muscles. So the bigger your tank, the more you can soak up all the sugar into your muscles.
Right. Okay. Interesting. This is highly fascinating. I'm just looking at the time. I don't believe we're already speaking for 40 minutes.
Yeah, time flies.
That time flies indeed. David, you have any more questions?
I mean, well, it's not really another. It's not really a question. It's sort of another observation. I mean, it's just a comment that you made earlier. What about blood testing? And you sort of said £271. It's a reasonable cost. And I mean, I'm just thinking there might be some people listening to the podcast that are like, wow, that's a lot. But you also phrased it as an investment. And I was like, that's like the perfect explanation, in that £271 might sound like a lot, but if it transforms your health, then, that's like, and your life going forward is so much better, then, you can't really put a price on that. And I think, and sort of going back to the sort of weight loss drugs, I think often people, and, and you talk about time pressured CEOs, but I think there is, humans are quite lazy in nature. And, as well, I think modern, in our environment, we want things like in an Amazon environment where you can order something and get it the next day. We don't like to put the effort in, and we want the quick solution. So, I think it's yeah, I think it shows that you do need to put the work in, and that's not always exercise. It's actually doing your research and learning as much as you can about your body and your physiology and your psychology. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that, yeah, this has been a fascinating conversation. And thanks very much, Mauro.
Yeah,
I mean,
just to add to like what you said with the labs, like if someone has never gone in blood work and they just go to the doctor and get in routine blood work where they check sugar, cholesterol, blood pressure once a year, that's all included. It's like, sure, you see 371 pounds, okay, but when we look at that, as you said, as an investment, but really anyone that has a phone in their hands, they probably spend 3 times as much on that. Anyone that has a TV, or like all the food that we eat that we shouldn't be eating, that is probably well worth over 5, if not 6 figures that someone has eaten in their lifetime, depending how old they are. So I think it's just a fraction of the cost of what people are spending that gets them further away from their goals, right? If you weigh it that way, like 371, okay, if you buy 20 pounds a week or 25 pounds a week that you buy on sugary stuff or chips and so on, like that's 100 a month. You add that up over years, it's just enormous there. So
and that's not taking into consideration, the cost on the other side. I mean, obviously in the UK we have the NHS, but the amount of pressure that obesity, bad lifestyles puts on the NHS, it's sort of a no-brainer, really. To me, it's investing in yourself is the best investment you can make.
absolutely.
No, brilliant. No, thank you so much, Mauro, for being on the podcast today. A lot of insights, lots of things to think about for me. Again, I think for me it comes down to diet, and I believe there are a lot of people like me out there, similar age as well, that struggle, right? So if people want to find out more about what you do and how you work, where can they do that?
Yeah, 2 places. So one is on social media. You can just put in my full name or type it in Google and you'll find me. Facebook, Instagram are the 2 channels that I'm most active on. And then the other one is sixpackceo.com. So 6 CEO.com, and that's where our main website is.
Okay. Brilliant. No, thank you so much. And yeah, maybe we need to have a round 2 to deep dive in some of the things a bit more.
Yeah, and I mean we'll put all those links in the show notes
Yeah.
and everything. But it's been another highly educational episode. So thanks very
Yeah.
much.
Thank you, Mauro.
guys for having me on. Yeah, it was a pleasure.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Feel free to reach out to Volker or David via our website, www.manupdown.com or podcast@manupdown.com, with any feedback or to let us know what topics you'd like us to cover in the future. Hear you again soon.